Well, hello and welcome. I'm going to go through and record a course I used to teach a long time ago. It was part of a general education course, and it's an introduction to New Testament Greek. So I've had a number of people ask me if I would go back and do something a little bit more at an elementary level, and so I'm going to record this course that I gave. This will not include all of Greek grammar, far from it. It's probably about 1/3 of a normal textbook on Greek. And to go further than that, you'll need to get a Greek grammar textbook and work through it. But this will at least give you a sort of leg in, a bit of an introduction to New Testament Greek grammar for those who are trying to start out from scratch. Some of you may already have learnt enough to move on a bit, so you might move on to a later section. There'll be 14 sections, I think, in total. So I'm going to begin right at the beginning with the alphabet, and the pronunciation of Koine Greek is something which is a complicated issue. My own pronunciation is not particularly good, and it's certainly not correct for the period of the time. But I'll say a little bit about it as we go. So here is our alphabet, the first letter of the Greek alphabet, alpha. And there's two versions of this. There's the capital A, which was the original one. And then many centuries later, people developed these smaller letters. An ancient Greek would not be able to read these smaller letters. They worked with the capitals. But in modern studies we use the small letters. So alpha, it's pronounced either as an A as in bat or R as in father. Just depends on the word. There's no way of telling without just learning it off. Second letter is beta, pronounced in modern Greek as a V sound, but in classical Greek as a harder B, possibly somewhere in between in Koine Greek. Gamma, there's the small gamma, and there's the capital gamma, pronounced again as a hard G as in girl in classical Greek, possibly softening a little bit. Almost in modern Greek it's almost a yurt sound now. Delta, again there's the small delta, capital delta. Corresponds to our letter D. Again, in classical Greek, it would have been a hard D sound. It's becoming, by Koine Greek, it's sounding more like a D sound, a TH, or perhaps a DH, D sound. And in fact, it often gets confused in writing with theta in terms of sound. So you see later there's a word uden, originally in classical Greek meaning nothing, and it gets in Koine Greek often written as uden because the two sounds were coalescing to some extent. Epsilon, this is literally, psilos is light, and epsilon is light E, and it's just it looks much like our letter E. Capital E looks exactly like our capital E. It's pronounced as a short E as in get. There is zeta. Now that's a difficult one to draw. You start up the top and you move your pen down and then around if you practice drawing this one. Zeta. In classical Greek it was pronounced as a zd, as sd. By this stage it's really just a z sound, perhaps as in lords. And that's the zeta, the capital zeta looks like our capital Z. Eta, this is a tricky one to get used to. It looks a bit like an English N. You draw it like that. Make sure you make the second arm move downwards a fair bit. Probably pronounced, well, in classical Greek it's a long E, air sound. By New Testament times it would have been probably just like our, perhaps a long A, as in gate, probably all I can say about that one. Theta, it's well known from mathematics. The letter theta, you probably know from maths. The capital theta looks like this, and that's a th sound, th. Iota looks like our English I, no dot though. There's the capital iota, and it's a short I really, it's like I. It can have a long sound of E as well in classical Greek. Generally in Koine Greek it's really just the short I. Kappa, looks like our English K, just a K sound. Lambda, you've got to get used to the lambda letter. That's the capital lambda, just like our English L. Mu, and that's another one to get used to because it looks a bit like a U. You start it off down here and draw it like this. Make sure you extend this down so you don't confuse it with a U. The capital mu looks exactly like our M, and it's just the M sound. Nu, another tricky one. It looks like our English V, but it is a nu. It corresponds to the letter N. It's just an N sound. Another one, to get a bit of practice with drawing, you start up the top and you go in here like this and then swirl around. It's a Xi. The capital looks like this one. Just 3 lines, and it's an X sound. Omicron looks exactly like our letter O, as in pot. It's a short O. It literally is O, micron, little o, because later we're going to have omega, big O. So this is just like O. Pi, another one well known from mathematics, just a pi. I normally put a little squiggle on the top of it, so pi, capital pi, and it's a P. Rho, another one, be careful of, it looks like our English P, but it's a Greek R, so you start at the bottom and go up around. Capital Rho, it's like our R sound, a rho. Now sigma, there are 2 variations of writing of the small sigma. These letters are called minuscule, by the way, so the sigma, you start in here and swirl around. Make sure you extend it out a bit so you don't confuse it with an O. There are 2 sigmas you'll notice here. This is the symbol you use when the S is at the end of a word. And this form of sigma you use either at the beginning or in the middle of the word. So this form's only used at the end. Capital sigma, again you might know from maths, it's just a S sound. Tor is a nice easy one, and capital Tor, and it's T sound. Upsilon, this again is a light U, but there's no heavy U really, but this is a light U, just looks like our English U. The capital U looks like our capital Y, and it's originally an U sound, and by Koine Greek times it comes to be pronounced like I, unfortunately. It's moving towards, in modern Greek, a lot of the vowels have become I sounds, and upsilon, U, has moved more towards an I sound in modern Greek and in Koine Greek. There's phi. People do their phis differently. This is the standard phi. I tend to write it more like this, or with a stroke slightly aslant. It's up to you which way you write it, but that's the Greek letter phi. Originally a P sound, it was pi plus an aspirated pi, a P. By Koine Greek it's just a F sound. It's the capital, a PH. Chi there's chi, and it's a guttural sound, a K as in lock or ich. It's a CH sound. Psi or psi, another one to get used to. Practice drawing. The capital looks much the same as the small, it's just written bigger with a bit less of swirl to it, and that's a ps sound, as in tops. And then there's there's omega, which is big O, omega, which again, practice drawing that one. That's the capital. There are two different capitals. There's this one, and there's also, you can write this one in bigger form and you get a capital omega, and that's an O sound, as in, can be long as, yeah, sorry, it's a long O as in home, probably softening a little bit by New Testament Greek times. So you should practice writing out the alphabet, learn to say it. There are 24 letters. Learn to recite them: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Now, just to get a little bit of practice, the next thing we've got to talk about are the diphthongs. These are combinations of vowels that group together to form a diphthong. These are important and take a bit of learning as well. So epsilon iota, I've said here pronounced as in A. By New Testament times, again, it's becoming just an sound, not quite so strong. Epsilon iota. There's alpha iota. Again, I've said here pronounced as in kite, but again, it's becoming more of a sound here. So we'll see the word for and is chi in classical Greek, but by New Testament times it's probably more like ke, as in modern Greek. Oi, as in toil, that's the classical pronunciation. In New Testament times, again, it becomes more like I. I'm generally going to use older classical pronunciation, because if I pronounce everything as or I, it's very hard to learn the words properly. So I'm going to not use proper pronunciation, I'm sorry, because I think it makes it harder to learn. There's U, omicron, upsilon, pronounced as in tool. There's an U sound. There's epsilon iota, again, that's a U sound. Original EU sound, and then it becomes just U. In modern Greek, the epsilon upsilon is pronounced as F, like an F sound, epsilon, as though it was EF. Possibly happening as early as New Testament Greek times. Alpha, this one likewise, af in modern Greek, but in classical Greek, ao. And this one generally has, as I'll mention in a minute, a hard breathing, and so it's got a wee sound to it, a wee, so it's like wee. So for example, this word here is pronounced huios. It's the word meaning sun, a sun, as in S-O-N. Now, in addition, there are a number of accents which I will use later, but not initially. We'll get to accents a bit later on. I'm not going to say that much about accents. You can look at books on the various usages of. For nouns, generally speaking, you have to learn where the accent goes. For verbs, there are very careful rules for verbs, which makes it much easier for accents on verbs, but not on, doesn't work so well for nouns. You have to just learn them. Now, two important things to say here. We have what are called breathings. Greek has two important breathings, and one is called a rough or hard breathing, and the other one is called a soft or smooth breathing. The former, the hard breathing, is written as an inverted comma going this way, and it's often transliterated by the letter H. The smooth breathing or soft breathing is written with the inverted comma going the other way and is not transliterated or pronounced. In modern Greek this isn't pronounced either, but in classical Greek it still is. So for example, we have the word ago, which will be transliterated as just alpha, gamma, O, with no breathing indicated. Ago is a verb meaning I lead. On the other hand, we have the word hexo, which is transliterated as with an H because of the hard breathing. Hexo means 6. It's cognate with our word 6. You'll know, for example, a hexagon, a figure with 6 sides. So hexo meaning 6. Very important statement here. Every word beginning with a vowel must have a breathing attached to it. So whenever you're writing a word beginning with a vowel, there must be a breathing there, either a soft breathing or a hard breathing. Now I've put some examples here of that. For example, arche, we should practice pronunciation here, arche or archi if you like. Soft breathing, this is the word for beginning. Can also mean a rule, as in the rule of a king, but arche in New Testament Greek generally is a beginning. Anthropos, again soft breathing. Anthropos, you'll know words like anthropology and so on. This is a word meaning a man, often with not necessarily any gender intended, so it can mean a member of mankind. So it could be used of a man or a woman, it just depends on the context. Ego, another word with smooth breathing. You'll know the word egotistical. Ego means I. It's first person I. Ophthalmos. You will know words like ophthalmology and so on. This is the word for the eye. All these have a smooth breathing. And here's some words with a hard breathing. Hagios, which is a word meaning holy. It's an adjective meaning holy. Or you can use it as a noun meaning a holy person, and hence a saint. Heptar, notice all these have H's in front. Heptar is a word meaning 7. You might know the word heptagon, a figure having 7 sides. Hemera, so hemera is a word meaning day. Again, hemera. We have the word in English ephemeral. It's F plus hemera. Ephemeral, something which lasts for a day. Hippos, we get hippopotamus, a river horse, because hippos is the word for horse. You get the words hippodrome, for example. All of these all have a rough breathing. So every time, if you're writing down a Greek noun, any Greek word that begins with a vowel or diphthong, then it must have a breathing in front. If it belongs with a diphthong, just to come back to our diphthongs up here, if it belongs to a diphthong, then the breathing goes over the second letter. So if you wanted a beginning of the word, you'd have it going this way, or hey, you'd have it going this way, but it goes on the second letter. So oo on the second letter. Another funny thing about the language is a thing called the iota subscript, which by Koine Greek times was not pronounced. It is in classical Greek. It's the letter iota. When it occurs at the end of a word, and sometimes elsewhere as well, it is written underneath the last letter. And this is known as iota subscript. Again, it's just an oddity of the way the script developed. So here's an example. We get anthropo. You don't pronounce it, but there's a little iota written down the bottom here. Or orge. Orge means anger, and this is orge. You don't pronounce it, but you must write it when just note it's there. Hemera. You can get it in the middle, so lues, so it'd be lues, correct, with the correct accent, lues, notice the little iota written in here, or toady, a little iota written in here. Now these are important because they have grammatical significance. They're not pronounced, they must be written, and you've got to look out for them because they have grammatical meaning, which we'll learn about later on. Now, just a little bit to get something for you to practice reading. If you like, you can take a screenshot of this, or you can get hold of the Lord's Prayer in the original Greek. I suggest you practice writing it out, transliterating it, and pronouncing it until you're comfortable with the alphabet. I know the alphabet may look a bit strange initially. Believe me, you'll get used to it very quickly. With a bit of practice, you'll get used to the alphabet extremely quickly. It's not that difficult, an alphabet. So just to read through this slowly, pater hemon, ho. Now notice we've got an H here on the top, so this is ho. En tois, diphthong here, uranois. As I was saying, when you've got a diphthong at the beginning, you've got to have a breathing. The breathing goes over the second letter. So pater hemon, ho en tois uranois. I'm going to use probably not perfectly correct Koine pronunciation here, but we can get used to the sounds, at least get used to the spellings. Hagiastheto. Just do it in syllables. Hagiastheto. Again, hard breathing at the beginning. To onomasu. To onomasu. You'll see how common these breathings are. They're all, in nearly every word's got a breathing here. If they begin with a vowel, they must have a breathing. So just so that you know what you're reading here, it says, Father of us, the one in the heavens, let your name be made holy. Let your name be sanctified. El theto he basileia su. El theto he basileia su. Again, let come your kingdom is what it means. There's a capital gamma. Gene theto, do it in syllables. Gen a theto, to thelema su. Hos, notice the hard breathing again. Hos en ureno, notice the iota subscript down here. Don't pronounce it, but it must be written. So gene theto, to thelema su hos en ureno, kai epigeis. So the meaning, let your will be done, let your will happen, as in heaven, also upon earth. Kai epigeis. Ton arton hemon, ton epiousion, dos hemin semeron. Ton arton hemon, notice the breathing, ton epiousion, dos hemin, hard breathing again, semeron. Literally, and this is the exact meaning of this word is debated, of course. It's give to us, semeron today, our bread, the bread which is, well, daily bread. It's often translated as daily bread. Kai, this would actually be ke in proper pronunciation, but I'm going to say kai, aphes, hemin, ta, now long word here, fail le mata. Do it in syllables. Of a le mata. Hemon hos kai hemes af he kamen tois opheleptais hemon. And I'll just translate it quickly. Forgive to us our debts, as we also forgive those indebted to us. Or perhaps our debtors, I should say. Kai me ace and ning case. Now that's another thing I haven't mentioned, but when you've got gamma before a consonant, that is before a chi or a kappa or another gamma, so gamma before a chi, kappa or gamma, this first gamma is pronounced as though it were an N. I won't make it complicated to explain why, but this technically is not really a gamma at all. It's a guttural nasal, but it's written like a gamma and it's pronounced N. So this is ace eneng case. And again, notice the iota subscript. Ace eneng case. Hemas ace perasmon. Alarusai, notice the breathing over rho. I've said you've got to have breathings over vowels and diphthongs, and also the letter rho at this stage will always have a hard breathing over it. If you've ever wondered why words in English, often like rhythm, begin RH, a lot of words in English begin with RH. It's this Indo-European RH. And so rho in Greek always will have, in this dialect, will always have a hard breathing. So you can't really pronounce the hard breathing. It's just rusai, hemas, apo tu poneru. So, and do not lead us into the time of trial or unto a test, but save us from the evil one. Haughty, now notice here, when you've got a capital, the breathing, and we saw it up here as well, the breathing goes just before the word. So this was el theto, and this is haughty. Haughty su estin he basileia kai he dunamis kai he doxa eis tus ionas. Amen. Because the kingdom is yours, and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So I'll leave you to practice writing that out, transliterating it and pronouncing it until you get comfortable with the alphabet. Now I've got a little exercise here, a little reading. This one is taken from Teach Yourself Greek, and it's called catastrophe. In fact, I've got the breathing wrong myself here. This breathing there's no breathing there at all, so just get rid of that. I'll just got to turn the power on. Sorry about that, I forgot to turn the power on the laptop. So there shouldn't be a bit of breathing there, that was just an error. So this is taken from Teach Yourself Greek book. It's just a silly story just to practice reading. So Hector, notice the breathing, Hector and Daphne, these are two people, were exploring the metropolis. The metropolis literally means the mother city. Metropolis is the mother city, metropolis. They dined at the Criterion, on ambrosia, a drink, and drank a delicate nectar, like that word nectar, and listened to the orchestra, These are all good Greek words. After that, their idea was to go to the kinema, the cinema, to see a drama. But before they got there, things reached a horrid climax. This is actually the word for a ladder. For poor Daphne, who was overcome with coma, accompanied by strange convulsions of the thorax. She collapsed in the arms of faithful Hector, who, exclaiming, "Oh, oh," called a physician whose diagnosis, after a careful analysis of the symptoms, was that the genesis of her trouble was not her psyche, but dyspepsia, contracted from a long sojourn in the tropic zone. Daphne's asbestos digestion had not protected her against the nectar. So just a silly little story there, taken from Teach Yourself Greek, just to practice again reading the words. I made up a little story here, again, just to get some more practice. This is more of a New Testament-y type story. So again, just to practice getting used to the alphabet. So the apostolos Paulos, the apostle Paulos, Paul, wrote an epistolan, wrote a letter to the Mathetais in Corintho. Mathetais is a word meaning the disciples. Literally means the students. You'll see it's connected with math in there, as in mathematics. It means, it's from a verb meaning learning. So the mathetes here, it's a dative. The ones learning, so the disciples in Corintho, in Corinth. Again, notice the little subscript here. Paulos was anthropos theou. So Paul was a man theou of God, who believed in Yesu. Now that's the name for Jesus. In the name Jesus is Jesus, but because of its position after N, it's just Yesu here. He taught that Jesus, that Jesus, was the huion theou. Huios is the word for son. Remember I mentioned with this hui, with the hard breathing, you pronounce this as huion theou, and the Christon and the Christ, and had ascended to the thronon theou. Thronon, the throne of God. Jesus therapeusen many leprous. So Jesus, think of therapeuo, therapeutics. He healed many leprous, many lepers. Kai therapeusen, and he healed the laon, think of laity, the people. Saved the cosmon, think of cosmos, the world, and rose from thanatu, this is the word for death. Jesus was the philos leu. Philos, think of well, many words beginning with phil. It means friend. Philos, the friend. Leu, of the people. So, by the way, we'll get to this later, but you see we've got laon here, people, and then we've got leu, of the people. So you change the ending when you want to go from just people to of people. And helped many paralyticus, many paralytics, and those paideia, children who were sick in the ophthalmo, literally in the eye. He did this on the Sabbato, on the Sabbath. He preached the euangelion. Now notice again the double gamma here. When you've got a gamma before a gamma or kappa or chi, this is pronounced as an N. So euangelion. Think of evangelize and so on. It means the good news. To the daimonius, ois, this is to the demons. But the diabolos, the devil, misai, think of misogynist, so hates Yesun, Jesus. Apostolos Paulos, the Apostle Paul, was a mathetes, a disciple Yesu of Jesus, who performed many great erga. Think of ergonomics, it means work, works here plural, in Israel. Performed many works in Israel. And that is the end of the first section, and I'll leave you to go back through that. And before going on to the next bit, make sure you've mastered the alphabet.